Welcome adventurers and fellow world builders. My name is Yadro and this is Yadro Gaming. Today we're going to discuss building encounters and how you can use a couple different online tools to set up your encounters so that they won't immediately overwhelm your party and your party won't just absolutely steamroll them either. I've seen a couple different creators post videos on this lately about how bad the D&D 5e encounter section is in the back of the player's handbook. In the 2014 version, I think it's on page 81 and 82. If you go to that area, it'll tell you how much experience you can have per level per day for each character that you have in your party. And then there's just some easy math that you work on that to figure out how much you would need. But there's a couple online tools that you can use to make this a lot easier on you. And it also adds in a couple multipliers based on the size of your actual party of your players, as well as the size of the party of your enemy combatants, and just how that math plays into the equation to make sure that you come out the other side with a more accurate reading of just how difficult those encounters are. Okay. If you head over to this website, you'll see that it's pretty straightforward on what it's asking you to put in order to give you out these calculations that you're going to need to build an encounter. So for the new table I'm running, I have 6 characters. Let's imagine that they all are currently at level 1. So we just started the campaign. And it's going to give you basically what categorization you would have to make it an easy, medium, hard, or deadly encounter. So right now you don't really see a whole lot on there because we haven't put in any monsters. So one of the kind of most common things you're going to run into are goblins. And goblins have a CR rating of 1/4. So you just type in the CR over here, and then let's see what 4 goblins of CR 1/4 of how difficult that would be. So if you scroll down here a little bit, you can see that that would be a medium difficulty encounter. You are considered having a large party because the game is balanced for having 4 characters in a party. There are 4 monsters in the group, but since you have a larger party than what they have, it adds in a different multiplier than if it was just 1 monster. I'll show you that in 1 second. So it tells you how much experience there is total in this fight with 4 at 50 apiece. That's going to get you 200, and you can split that up per person. But it also gives you an adjusted difficulty rating so that when you're comparing that to how hard the encounter would be, like over here, if a medium is 300, that adjusted difficulty is 300, and that would come out to a medium encounter. Now let's say we were going up against just 1 monster. And it's pretty common in a lot of modules that there's like 1 CR5 monster in the back of a manual. So if we put in just one single monster has 1800 experience. And that's a lot for a first level party to take. If they beat this, they'd all hit 300 experience and all gain a level. But since the party's size is much larger than the single enemy, there's a multiplier on here of 0.5. So that will cut the experience difficulty of this in half. So normally that would be an 1800 experience encounter, which is like 3 times whatever the deadly level is. But when you add in that multiplier of you having all of this extra action economy of having 6 characters versus 4, you're going to see that that is going to make it a little bit easier. You're going to have a lot more bodies in there, swinging a lot more stuff, a lot more healing words and healing than just magic in general. So that's going to cut this in half. So it'll be a 900 difficulty instead. Now that it becomes a challenge rating 3 encounter, so it's not quite as hard as what a 5 would be, but this is still a very deadly encounter for 6 level 1s. Now that being said, having this multiplier in there makes a very, very big difference. So if we go back to our goblin example where it's 4 CR 1/4 monsters, you'll see that that is a medium encounter. But what if there's 8? So based on the number of monsters you have here, and they're now considered a gang, that would be 400 experience, but since the action economy is in their favor, so if it would be 1.5 if they had 1 more member than your party, it's 2 if they have 2 greater than your party. It becomes an 800 experience fight, and I think that you would find that 8 CR 1/4 monsters would be a pretty deadly encounter for a first level party, even with 6 characters. Now my other piece of advice here, if you're going to build a combat like this, or if, heaven forbid, you have 10 CR 1/4 monsters where it's still a deadly encounter, it doesn't, once it's deadly, this would just be a very deadly encounter for a party of 6 level 1 adventurers, that you would find a way to split up these monsters so that they're not all going at once in turn order. If they would get the initiative jump on the party and they have 1 initiative, they're going to have 10 attacks coming in on this party of 6 level 1s, and they're just going to decimate the party. They've just got too many attacks coming in. If they have any kind of cover or if they have any kind of terrain advantage in their favor, this is going to overwhelm your party if they get the jump on them. And even if it's 3 characters going first and then 10 goblins in a row, you're going to be in a really bad spot. So I would find a way to break this up into 2 or 3 initiatives so the party can react to what's going on around them, possibly get into cover themselves, because if these goblins ambush the party, you're going to be in for a very short night with the TPK. Now you can also go in here and add, well, what if there is, so you can also go in here and say, like, what if there is like a boss, a CR1 sort of creature with them, and 4 goblins with them as well. And you'll see that that comes out to it's still a deadly encounter. So I don't want that to be deadly, so what if we bring it down to 3? Okay, now it became a hard encounter. We've still got the multipliers on here showing us how difficult it would be, but that's putting things more in our favor. So now what if we take the boss down and we only have 2 of them in there? It's still a hard encounter, but now it's like closer to what the hard threshold is. It's still got a 1.5 times multiplier, but I would feel much better about this being in a closing fight at the end of like a dungeon in a goblin lair or something, versus just having everybody throwing in there all at once and having the party completely overwhelmed. I hope using that encounter calculator for all my 5e Dungeons & Dragons players out there is helpful. I know that it's hard to come up with this stuff on your own and to do the math, and the book is kind of intimidating. But if you use an encounter generator like that, where you can go through and play around with it and just kind of see how it intuitively makes sense, I think you'll have a lot more luck when building out encounters, so you have at least a little bit better of an idea of how things should play. Now that being said, the dice are going to tell their own story. And even the best laid plans can go sideways if the party has some really bad rolls or if the monsters roll really hot. I've had many times where I've thrown an encounter at a party that was like beyond deadly, and the party ended up just steamrolling it because everything went in their favor. They were really clever. They had some spells that all went off. So just be prepared for that little bit of chaos to enter in there. But as long as you can prepare beforehand as best you can, I think you'll find a lot more success when building these encounters. If you're having trouble coming up with what kind of monsters to throw at the party, you can play just around with the CRs like I just showed you in that video, or you can pull up a site like this. So if you're having any trouble finding what kind of monsters you want to throw at your party, I would highly recommend using this website. And as you go through, you can search for monsters by name, and it'll pull up any monster that has that name in it. You can also search by CR, or just kind of narrow down the field for whatever it is that you're looking for, and it'll, one word of caution here is that if you are going to be checking out spellcasters, you'll notice that they don't have any of the spell blocks on them, because a lot of that isn't open access for players. So you're going to want to go to D&D Beyond, or just look them up in the monster manual to find out what kind of spells they actually have. But in terms of getting inspiration for what kind of monsters you want to throw at the party, that would be a great way to do it. So as you see here, I'm going to go search for our goblin. These are some higher CR goblins that are on the list, but if I want to bring up the whole list here, I can search by CR, filter them out, go down to goblin here, and I've got all of their stat block in one place for me. And then I'll usually take a screenshot of this and put it into a Word document, so I have all my monsters of the encounter in one place on one doc, so that I can go through there and just have everything in one place. But this is a great website to use to make sure that you're keeping everything here in one spot for you, and to give you inspiration on what to plug into that encounter generator. Thank you so much for hanging around and watching the video. I would love to hear any examples that you might have when you were DMing and you made an encounter and it went either way better than what you expected to, or way worse based on the dice rolls that you had. I know I've had a lot of examples of that, but I want to hear some of yours. Feel free to comment below and I'll respond if I see them. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, why be a player when you can be a god?